So you sent me a
So,
text earlier.
yeah, so Brett McMurphy reported that Washington State, their president, Kurt Schultz, says that their athletics will have a temporary freeze on all current and future vacant positions until further review, as well as a pause on non-essential travel, purchases, and new professional development because a significant decrease in Pac-12 revenue distribution as a result of overpayments from one of the conference media partners that must be resolved.
that
Relocation of the
sound
Pac-12. Yeah,
that
so
sounds like
the
the text that I
Washington's,
send Gabby when I've spent too much money on my credit card. So you're gonna
yeah.
have to dumb that down and explain it
So
to me a little bit.
that's the first half of this. The Washington State half is that they're not hiring any new positions. They will not have any non-essential travel, so likely no recruitment visits, likely no training that might take place at the headquarters for the Pac-12, no coaching visits, anything that's non-essential is frozen. And I'm going to assume essential would be game only, which
Yeah.
means they will not be spending any money in that department until whenever.
Who
That also
knows?
means if they Tennessee does a coaches caravan where you can buy tickets to go see coaches, I imagine that's probably also canceled or on hold. Someone it looks like one of the media companies overpaid the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 went ahead and redistributed that money. So the money is like spent, but the schools might have to pay back some of it. That's speculation. I mean, a lot of this is legalese. The second part of this is that the Pac-12 headquarters relocation out of San Francisco exceeded the Pac-12's budget projection as well. And WSU projects that Cougar Athletics exceeded its expenditures for the year due to inadequate documentation of revenues and expenses. On the accounting side, that's really bad for a public institution to do. My understanding is this is not uncommon in the Pac-12. I think Cal is in a similar situation, and ultimately it's going to lead to the collapse of the Pac-12. I think there's a reason why USC and UCLA were real quick to jump out of the Pac-12, and it's money. It's always money. The Pac-12 spending more money than they had is bad. That is by far the worst run conference. It took less than a week for the Pac-12 to be out of the news, for them to get right back in it for something just as bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like when it said projections, I mean, rent's really high in San Francisco. It's horrible. And so, I mean,
Well, they were leaving
everybody's
San Francisco is what I took from that text message. Like they were
okay.
relocating away from San Francisco.
And
They're
that's
probably
what
building
cost
a new
more.
building. Yeah, I mean,
Everyone is leaving San Francisco. That's for a different podcast, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of
yeah.
money to be had over there.
I mean, my prediction is that the collapse of the Pac-12 is coming, and it's going to suck for Oregon State, Washington State, probably Fresno State and San Diego State too.
It's going to suck for them, but at the same time, does it give other schools opportunities and other conferences opportunities to really build with some of those schools? Now, their
I don't think
traveling
so.
budget, you don't
I don't
think
think
so?
so. I
Why
mean,
not?
if you're not Oregon or Washington, no. Do you want Cal? Do you want Stanford? Maybe you want Stanford for academic or baseball, but what value does Cal have? They're not good at anything. What value does Oregon State have? They had their first winning season in football in like 20 years.
They were a good team last year, though. And if they keep building off that, I would definitely want them.
I don't think they can keep building off of it.
Hmm.
I mean, building off of a 7-6 season is not the same thing as doing what Utah has done, which is winning the Pac-12 twice in back-to-back Rose Bowls. All right.
Yeah,
well,
but
let's start the pod.
I
don't
okay,
want to.
let's go.
We've got a lot to talk about. I don't want to get bogged down. We can talk about the Pac-12
On
next
the
week.
Pac-12.
We can talk about the Pac-12 network on Ion Television. This is Olivia Benson with SVU, and you're watching Arizona State and Colorado
At 10 o'clock at night.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bad Take Blake. It is Tuesday, May 23rd. SEC baseball tournament is underway, and we are here with another episode of Bad Take Blake. I'm your host, Davis, welcomed again by my co-host, Drew. It is a normal episode, no guests this week.
Welcome back, guys. I know we got some new listeners. Arrive Logistics. Shout out to my boys over there, Peter, Tristan, Davis. I know y'all are all listening now. I appreciate it.
Oh, y'all have a Davis over there?
Yeah, Lipper, dude. His last name's Lip. He's a beast. I
So
mean,
yeah,
just
no,
all
I've got
around
a
guy.
I've got a group message with a bunch of Davises. We are planning to all meet up 1 year from now, and we're gonna Hunger Games it because there can only be one.
He'll sign up tomorrow. Just give me the
So
form.
we are back with another bad take of the week. Our bad take Blake of the week. And this is a surprising one because this is someone I have a lot of respect for. I watch their show, but in his own terms, this is a casual take. Josh Pate saying that Sanford Stadium is a top 5 stadium in the country. They're not a top 5 stadium in the SEC. And I understand his argument that Kirby has put excitement into it. He's built it, and the fans are happy and they're energized. And I hate to tell you this, but if your coach is having to convince fans to go to a 1v1 game in November home with, 2 undefeated teams, number 1 in the CFB poll, number 1 in the AP poll, you don't have a good stadium atmosphere. I mean, stadium atmospheres are not built in 5-year spans. They're built after decades of loyalty and tradition. And the truth is, Sanford Stadium is generic. It's lame. Half the fans golf clap, and half of them do this weird cosplay where they wear these ugly shoulder pads and they bark at you. It's gotten a little bit better. No, it is repulsive. We have a lot to say about Georgia fans this episode, but we're going to stick with this. And this take, I believe, was born out of this nauseating sexual tension that Josh Pate has with Brandon Walker, because Brandon Walker on his podcast said Sanford Stadium was not top 5. And they do this thing. Sometimes Brandon's right, sometimes Josh is right, but they always have to comment on each other. And it's really smart because it drives views for both of them.
Views.
And, these are 2 guys I've got a lot of respect for. I listen to both of their shows. I generally agree with most of their takes. You don't agree with everyone's takes, but 2 people that if you're doing what we do, you hope you can at least generate their numbers. You hope you can be as entertaining as they are. But once again, that sexual tension between you 2 is nauseating. You guys should just kiss.
Yeah, at this point. And as soon as you sent me this, the first thing I got from it was views. This is a views thing. I don't think anyone really thinks that. Maybe he thinks that, but
it is equal parts pandering to the whiniest and most insecure fan base in the country right now, as it is views. Like that's what it boils down to. But
I don't know about whiniest, but insecure. No, you hit it. You hit it on the nail on the head.
And we'll talk more about that later. But this does lead us into our first topic of conversation: best stadiums in the country. And we've also said best stadiums in the SEC because I will contend Sanford Stadium is not a top 5 SEC stadium, let alone top 5 stadium in the country. I think, pause. I said that we were each going to give our top 5 for this one, and then we're going to alternate for the helmets, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give my top 5 first, and then you give yours. Number 1, by far, Death Valley, LSU. I know Tennessee kind of took over that house and took a little of the shine off, but Death Valley at night, and we saw it the same season against Alabama. That place was rocking. It's a scary stadium. The fans piss on you. They throw beer bottles at opposing fans' buses. It's not somewhere you want to go. Penn State whiteout. This is on my bucket list of stadiums. I'd love to see a Penn State whiteout game against Ohio State in October. Incredible atmosphere. The second largest stadium in the country. Neyland Stadium. 3rd Saturday in October this year is the best environment I've ever been in. Yelled so loud I almost passed out on multiple occasions. Whenever Neyland is rocking, it's rocking. And despite a decade of dysfunction, there's still a lot of really good moments in there. If Georgia fell on what Tennessee fell on, those golf clappers are not going to those games. Florida State.
Wow, I didn't expect that.
No, this one is, I think it flies under the radar for a lot of people because Florida State's been down the last 4 years. But, the Seminole chop that they do whenever the Chief Seminole comes out riding on the horse and throws the spear at the center field, that is something. It's hot. It's just as hot and humid as the University of Florida Stadium is, but also their fans are crazy. Like Florida State fans, legitimately, they party all day. Florida State belongs in the SEC. And then my last one is another one you probably don't have on your list, I had to give the Pac-12 some love here. Oregon, the Autzen Zoo. It's nicknamed that for a reason. It is loud. There's a reason Oregon rarely gets defeated at home over the past 20 years. That is a stadium. First
Mine,
three are indisputable. First three are not disputable for me. You can argue 4 and 5, but I could give you 10 more stadiums that are not Samford that would fill there.
well, so I have Death Valley as my 1. I also have Penn State as my 2. Penn State's always been a bucket list for me. The whiteout, they like to think they invented the whiteout. There's some real controversy there, but regardless, it's a great place to watch football.
Did
Notre
not
Dame.
invent it, but made it iconic.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I think Notre Dame is up there. It's always somewhere that I've wanted to go watch.
If I were doing a top 5 iconic stadiums, Notre Dame would have been up there with Touchdown Jesus. But I really tried to go for craziest, loudest, most intimidating, hardest. And like I said, there's 10 other stadiums that I could have put somewhere in that list.
So at what point are we going to talk about the big house? Because that has to be in your top 5. Michigan. I mean, that's football legacy right there. They fill it up. It's built into the ground. So they say that sound goes better. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say.
Largest stadium in the country.
Yeah, it's huge. Neyland. To me, Neyland is up there. Some of the best games I've ever watched have been in Neyland Stadium. So I would be doing a disservice to the people who trust me to give my honest opinion to not say Neyland is in my top 5, because to me they really are. My last one, and you're gonna hate this, Bryant-Denny Stadium.
I do hate that because I think it's wrong.
Watching Alabama play LSU on a Saturday night in late November was gorgeous.
This goes back to Georgia has had the best 2 teams the last 2 years. That doesn't mean they've had the best stadium. Alabama's had the best team for the last 12 years, 14 years. Good God, it's going almost 20 years. It's what Saban got there in 2007. I think Bryant-Denny's better than Samford. I have them ranked higher than that in my SEC rankings. But, other stadiums I think are worth mentioning. Memorial Stadium, Gaylord Memorial that Oklahoma plays in. Doak Walker's Florida State's. Texas Stadium is pretty intimidating. Ohio State, the Horseshoe is a fantastic stadium. Kimmett Field at Iowa. Iowa's got a sneaky good home field advantage. The other Death Valley and Clemson, but that's another one of those. Is it a tough stadium or are they just a good team? So I hesitate to put them on that list. Washington has a very good home field.
Kyle Field?
Yeah, Kyle Field, really good in the SEC. And while we're on this list, let's go ahead and give our top 5 SEC stadiums. I think we both know our number 1 and number 2, LSU, Tennessee. And then my number 3, Florida, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. That place is miserable to play in September. I've been down there before. It's disgusting. Their fans are some of the toughest to be around in the country.
They are.
Because they're terrible people.
And they're ratchet.
After that, and I don't know why Auburn is this way. I put this on Twitter. I think it's because of voodoo. We've all heard of Auburn Jesus, but Jordan-Hare Stadium is magnificent, man. The home field advantage that's there. I know Auburn's been down the last couple of years, but when Auburn is even decent, that's a really tough place to play. So Auburn's my number 4, and then Kyle Field, Texas A&M is my number 5 in the SEC. But if I were to keep going, Alabama would be number 6. And then after Alabama, then you can start talking about Georgia. But, I'd be inclined to mention Fayetteville, Arkansas, whenever they call the Pigs. That's a good stadium. Enter Sandman with Williams-Brice Stadium in South Carolina. That's not a bad stadium. There's nothing in particular that intimidates me about Sanford Stadium. I don't care how much crowd noise you pump in there. I don't care how many fake decibel numbers that you put on the screen. Congratulations on showing out for one game that your coach had to beg your fans to come to. I'm not going to give you a pat on the back for that.
It's really wild to me too, because, and our lists are very similar. I think I would probably put Bryant-Denny in that top 5 somewhere, but it's very weird to me because no one has ever thought that Sanford Stadium was top in the SEC. Like I've heard the craziest takes in the world. I've never heard someone say that. And I know Georgia fans. I know people who have been to Georgia to watch games and have been a lot of other places. And no one has ever said, oh, yeah, man, that's a heck of a place to watch football at.
Yeah. Okay. Give me your top 5. LSU, Tennessee, Bryant-Denny. Kyle Field, I'm assuming, is your 4. Who's your 5?
Kyle Field is my 4. This is going to be Vaught Hemingway.
Terrible take.
Dude, let me tell you something.
Take.
When it's a big game, they show up. They show up.
I'm not going to pat them on the back for the same reason I won't pat Georgia on the back. Ole Miss was undefeated going into October, and Lane Kiffin is begging people, show up to Vaught Hemingway. And they're panning the camera, and it's just dead inside.
You've been, haven't you?
Yeah, of course I've been. I've been multiple times, many times, more than several, many.
That Bama game I went to when they beat Bama, I think it was the first time they beat them when Katy Perry was there or whatever. That was probably a top 5 football game I've ever been to. I mean, it was rocking.
The third Saturday in October is the best football game I've ever been to this past year, where Tennessee beat Alabama. But I can tell you without question, I have been there for Tennessee Tech, and Neyland is rocking. UT Martin this year, Neyland was rocking. Appalachian State in 2016, Neyland was rocking. We don't need an excuse to show up. We just show up.
Fair enough.
Give me your bottom 3 in the SEC. I think 2 of them are easy.
Mizzou is easy. Kentucky's easy.
You missed the obvious one.
Who are you thinking of?
Vanderbilt and Missouri are the 2 worst.
Yeah, Vanderbilt as well.
Kentucky's not terrible. They're just not iconic. Like,
Do they show up?
They have before. I don't know if they did this year. I think number 3 worst is probably either Kentucky, and then Ole Miss is probably my number 4. Mississippi State would be my 4th worst, but they have those cowbells, which are illegal.
I think Mississippi State is right. Mississippi State shows up pretty well. I think they're number 7 on my list. 7, 8.
Regardless.
Now, my girlfriend is sitting in the next room who went to Mississippi State, so that could influence this opinion. I'm not saying it is, not saying it isn't.
While we're on the topic of college football, I asked you to prepare a list of ugly football helmets. We are going to alternate on this one. We're going to go back and forth.
Okay.
Give me from number 5 to number 1. So you're going to start at number 5 and you're going to work up to the ugliest.
You want me to start?
Yeah, I want you to start.
Half of Oregon's helmets.
Okay. So my number 5 is Michigan. I think they're ugly. Like the thing that they've got at the front with the 3 stripes back, I think the color scheme in general is ugly. It's not gold, it's maize, which is the most Midwestern thing that you could give the color yellow. It's navy and maize. I think it's incredibly ugly. I think the helmets are atrocious. Michigan has the 5th ugliest helmet in the country for me.
This one isn't. Hold on. Pause for a second, because I pulled up the wrong one. Who am I thinking of? It's not Fresno State. It's red with white stripes. Nebraska. All right.
Are you thinking of the Nebraska alternate one? Or are you thinking of just the white one with the 1 red stripe and the N?
Let me look. So the ones with the N are sweet. So my other one was going to be, or I think Oregon States are so ugly. Okay, here we go. So my next one is going to be Oregon State. They don't
Really?
do much to it. Their colors throw me off. It's just it's ugly. It's time for them to get an update. It I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way.
That's fine. Really picking on the state of Oregon.
Yeah,
Do
sorry
you
guys.
pronounce it Oregon or Oregon?
Oregon.
Oregon. My number two, I'm going to pick on the second half of the most overrated rivalry in college sports. Ohio State's helmets look like Pee Wee helmets. They're just the base silver doesn't really look good anyway, but then you throw all these stickers on there, and it's such a lame gimmick. We used to put stickers on my helmets for GYAA Pee Wee football. We outgrew it by the time we were juniors. So that's all I have to say on that. The game features the ugliest helmet matchup in college football.
Can we talk about how bad, and sorry, Peter, I know you're probably listening to this, Iowa. Good God, you got to figure something else out than a bird head on your helmet for the last, as long as I've been watching you guys.
You know, I almost put Iowa State on my list because I think their color scheme is gross. I don't know why Cardinal and gold looks so much worse on Iowa State than it does on USC, but I opted not to. So all those helmets like Iowa, Missouri, pretty much any form of black and gold or black and like the corn yellow type colors, I don't think they look very good together. And that's who I have next on my list is Missouri.
I figured you'd throw them in there somewhere. I
Particularly
think they
the
got new ones.
particularly the white ones that have the black big stripe with the gold line and then the black M. I think those in
Yeah.
particular are their ugliest helmets. Now they've got a matte black helmet that has their tiger on it. I think they were from the James Franklin era whenever he was the quarterback there. I like those helmets.
Yeah, they were cool, but it just gives me like, I went to Houston High School. It just gives me like high school. We're trying to be relevant by getting a new, you know,
I like alternate uniforms, but Missouri is my third ugliest.
I just feel like college is cutting, like college football is, when you talk about helmets, uniforms, and stuff like that, is supposed to be the cutting edge. And if you're wearing something that other schools have been wearing for the last 10 years or 15 years or however long, unless it's like tradition, it just throws me off a little bit. It's just, come on. We can't
I
come
don't
up with
know.
anything better.
You kind of dogged Oregon. I consider Oregon cutting edge.
They
The
overdo
Oregon
it.
the Oregon Duck helmets were disgusting
They
though.
were gross.
Like the duck uniform. All right, give me your second ugliest helmet.
My second ugliest helmet, let me get my notes back up, is going to be, this is going to be a shocker to you. Kentucky's all silver.
The chrome.
I just hate them.
I
I
mean,
hate them.
I think most people think that those are very good looking helmets, and they're not
I
too dissimilar from the Tiger helmets.
I don't really like when I like the Tigers all white ones. Those are my favorite. I like either the white or the blue. The chromes are cool with the Tigers, but with Kentucky, it just, I don't know. Like, is chrome a part of their color scheme? I guess it's not really a part of ours, but gray is.
I mean, you got to understand everything that Kentucky thinks is cool, they stole from somebody else. They tried to
Fair
steal
enough.
checkerboards.
Calipari.
Stole Calipari from UMass, where he was truly an iconic coach.
Those years in Memphis. Ooh.
I think those years were vacated. My number two ugliest helmet, and I don't know if it's been worn in a while, but it's certainly up there, is the Copper Arizona helmet. It's like copper, so like I told you, I thought the Memphis basketball copper uniforms are ugly. Same concept. A copper helmet with just the Arizona A. And the Arizona A still has their white, red, and blue on it. I don't know why they landed on copper for this helmet, but it doesn't go with any other combination they have. Looks atrocious.
They've been irrelevant for so long, I didn't even think about them.
Yeah. Your ugliest helmet in college football.
This was a hard one for me. It took me a while to come up with it. Part of me, the Clemson blue helmets. The blue helmets they've never
Clemson has
worn.
blue helmets?
Yeah, have you not seen them?
No. Is it blue or is it purple?
It might be purple. Blue helmets. I'm about to show them to you.
We'll put it on screen for the people that watch on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube at Bad Take Blake.
Oh, they're so ugly.
Share
I'm
your
sending this to
screen.
you right now. Can I do that on here?
Send it to me. Text it to me. I'll put it on there in the edit.
I'm sharing it. Hold on.
Yeah, purple. That's purple.
Yeah, purple. Gross. Now these honestly wouldn't be as bad just because it's less purple.
That's
Now
a fan.
those would
That's a
be
fan
cool.
concept.
Yeah, but these are gross.
Whenever Clemson does like the orange helmets with the purple uniforms, that makes me want to throw up. That is so ugly. It's bad. My number one ugliest helmet in college football: the Maryland Terrapin Maryland State Flag alternate helmet.
I didn't even think about this.
That whole
exactly
jersey selection, yeah, no, it's got 5 different colors and it's sectioned weird. It's supposed to look like the Maryland flag, but because Maryland's main color for this uniform is black, it all ends up looking awful, terrible. And I have one honorable mention. I might get a little hate for this honorable mention because I know what this uniform is supposed to represent. Boston College has a red bandana uniform, and the helmet, it's like,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
yeah. The helmet has the same pattern as like those red bandanas you used to wear. Normally they wear a gold helmet. I think this one is actually like a maroon or red, and it's to honor a former student, maybe student athlete, maybe football player who passed away from cancer. But it's not a good looking helmet, and I'm sorry.
I'm looking at it right now. It's not pretty.
So those are the top 5 ugliest helmets in college football. Moving on to our next section now. Memphis just had a really big event this past weekend. It is and I'm shocked how many people outside of Memphis don't know what this is, because I know a lot of people
Me
come
too.
into town. But I was talking to someone from Nashville because I'm looking at maybe putting a team together for next year, and we'll talk about this. It's a shit ton of money, but BBQ Fest, World Championship Barbecue Contest in Memphis, Tennessee was this past weekend. I went for one day, stayed at the Hogfather tent. It was a lot of fun. And for those of you that don't know, this is like a 4 or 5 day event. It really starts Wednesday and runs through Saturday's the final judge day, and then Sunday's a teardown day. And these people come in and they build these 2, in some cases 3 or 4 story tents out of scaffolding. The tent I was at was 2 stories. There was, standing and sitting room up top, and then under that was a DJ, a dance floor, a couple porta potties, and then an open bar with the cooking section in the back for the people that were cooking and actually competing. They had a security guard there. Most of these places require you to have a wristband to get in on top of the ticket you purchase to enter the festival. And they smoke meat, various things get judged, including sauce, wings. I think it's shoulder that they do, ribs. For the first time in 20 years, a rib won the overall best.
Really? I didn't know that. One of my really good friends, the Suzors, are a part of a team who won it for it was either 2 or 3 straight years ago. And then my cousin Jeff has won best tent for the last 3 years, but they literally come in and build it from wood in like 3 days. It's insane. It's a 3-story tent, wood stairs. I mean, it's nuts. It's really next level.
That sounds insane. And, the rub on this is, if you're from Memphis, if you have a tent, it's a lot of fun. So you get that first tent, you go there, you hang out, and then you're walking around the festival and you realize 20 other people that have different tents. And so it kind of becomes a 4 or 5 day party. We had a company tent, and they sent out an email saying, if you're not there for work, don't come by. So I was not there. I'm not in sales. I had no reason to be there.
It's so fun though. I mean, I just grew up having so much fun going tent to tent. And then obviously as I got older, we started consuming alcohol and of legal age, and just had so much fun going on the roof, and a lot of these places, they don't charge for alcohol because you have to know someone to get in.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun.
Do you know how much I asked my person who helped set up their tent, I asked them, how much is your barbecue team's budget and how much is just the spot? They told me it's $20,000 just for like the spot. And they had so many teams this year. The land's not super big. They were doing construction on Tom Lee. So they had to tell some teams, it's like, sorry, we don't have enough room for you.
I saw that.
Raise the price on the lots. And it was like 20,000. And it's not a big spot. Like, it's kind of asses and elbows in there. All these tents are right up on each other. Their total budget was $65,000. And how most teams finance this, yeah. So I said I was putting together a team. I heard this number. I was like, I might have to rethink this. But most teams finance this either by way of sponsors, and the sponsors will pay for some portion. They'll get their name on it. They'll probably get a number of wristbands to where they can come entertain customers, or they will assemble a team of however many people, and they'll ask everyone buy in, maybe 250 a person. And there's still like a significant personal cost to the people that compete, but the people that are good at it do it every year.
Every year, that they really do. It's like their favorite thing to do all year too. And it's so fun to watch because you get literally the best barbecue in the world. The stuff I saw, it wasn't that expensive, just renting the lot itself. Now, from what the people I've talked to, the really expensive thing is A, the alcohol, B, the food, because you have to buy so much meat and bring it in there and cook it. And, you got to bring grills in, you got to buy charcoal, you got to buy all that kind of stuff. But the alcohol,
you're also providing food for people that come by your tent for 4 days. It's like lunch and dinner, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday's judging.
Well, and then you get those people who, like, I'm in a tent and it's 10 or 11 at night or 10 at night. And it just so happens that I'm in the tent that a lot of people want to be in. And everyone's mad, hey, why can't you get me in? Why can't you get me a wristband or whatever? And it's like, bro, like, these people have been paying for all these people to drink for free all weekend. I know one guy who spent a little under $4,000 on alcohol, and it lasted him barely. I mean, we ran out on Saturday.
I had a buddy, him and his wife bought into a group a couple years ago, and I think they paid $250, and they got a limited number of wristbands to give. Sometimes you just pay that money just for you to come in.
Exactly.
And then there are some tents that I think they're trying to win best tent, so they treat it more as a party tent, and they'll charge like a cover for randos to come in on top of that.
That's what my cousin does. They love smoking meats, and like that's the whole reason why they're
Rubbing
there.
butts.
But rubbing butts, just digging into meat. But that's the reason they're there. But at the same time, it's really all about the tent.
Yeah, but it's a great experience. If you're not from Memphis, if you've never been, definitely go check it out. Next year, we just wrapped up this year. Other notable events coming up if you're in Memphis, Italian Fest is coming up within the next couple weeks. And then Wing Fest is in August, I believe, at the Liberty Bowl.
I didn't even know we had that.
Yeah, it's kind of new. Moving on, SEC baseball tournament has started today. I don't know if you watch baseball at work. I was watching it today, and today was kind of a slow day. Half of our office is out on vacation. But I had it on while I was completing some other tasks. It kind of hits. Like before Tennessee came on and ruined my day, it was a lot of fun watching South Carolina beat the piss out of Georgia. Not quite as good as March Madness, but like whenever you're in your own little bubble and no one else is watching it, it definitely makes the day go by faster.
Bad news for you, Texas A&M looks really good.
We already lost.
I know, but I'm just completely. Was today the last one?
First round is single elimination.
Okay. I thought they had another one to play.
Listen, it doesn't matter. Tony Vitello is playing chess, not checkers. He's not a loser coach like Dave Van Horn at Arkansas or Tim Corbin. He knows, he learned from last year. Going farther in the SEC has not indicated success in regionals. He's 5 steps above everybody else.
I hope you're right.
They're going to make a run at the regional, get to the super regional, and then it's anybody's ball game. Now, this idiot, Dave Van Horn, probably the worst coach of the year in SEC history. And I'm saying all this because I know my buddy Sam's listening. He's an Arkansas fan. But probably click that because those guys are out. You want to talk about a whiny fan base? Arkansas's there. The state of Mississippi is bad at baseball. The last two national champions did not make the qualifier to get to Hoover. They're not in the conference tournament. Got beat out by Missouri for the last seed.
Southern Miss would have a better chance in the SEC tournament than either of those schools would have.
Hey, there was a point where Southern Miss had more SEC wins than Ole Miss and Mississippi State combined.
Yeah, people forget.
Until, Ole Miss cheated and canceled the game.
Yeah.
As they do. I mean, that's what you expect from that fan base. Scummy people. You guys have met our friend Cole, a.k.a. Goat Kiffin. Scummy person. He's happy to have Chris Beard. They'll tell you.
Whatever. They'll tell you. Get your wins how you can.
When somebody tells you the type of character that they have, just listen.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
So on that note, Dave Van Horn for Arkansas won SEC Coach of the Year. Well-deserved. They tied for the best record. They came in with the second seed with Florida, co-champions, Arkansas and Florida. And then Vanderbilt and who's that last top 4 seed? LSU with the 3 seed. LSU's really fallen off. South Carolina.
Yeah, they are.
South Carolina has really fallen off.
Fall from glory, some would say. I mean, good God.
If you had to pick one SEC team to win it all.
Texas A&M looks hot.
No, it's A&M. I don't think they have it in them.
They look hot.
My knee jerk is to lean Arkansas, but I don't think they can win it all just because they're Arkansas. So I'm going to go Florida because I know Florida probably could win it all and they're just as good. Whoever wins
Texas A&M, honestly, I really think that the way they're playing right now, they're flying very close to the sun, but they're not going to fall off yet. They're not too close yet. So don't expect them to be, even if they do win it, to go deep in Omaha, but
I guarantee Texas A&M loses their next 2 games and gets bounced from the SEC tournament.
Do we know who they're playing yet?
Arkansas.
Okay. Well,
that's
see.
That's their next one. They'll lose that one, go down to the losers bracket, which is single a limb again, and then they'll be gone. I wouldn't put it past Tim Corbin to make a run either. Whoever wins the SEC tournament will not win the College World Series.
That's a fact. That is 100% fact.
Has Goat Kiffin told me on Twitter today, going far in Hoover works directly against you going far in the College World Series. And as I sit here and I'm thinking about it, makes a lot of sense. Losing in the first round with bad weather, poor officiating, having an overall bad batting day, probably the best case scenario for Tennessee, who did just win a series on the road against a ranked South Carolina team.
I wouldn't say that in there. Had to throw that.
Had to. So we already gave you one bad take. I'm here to give you another one. Bad take part 2. It's really a shame. Like, I am shaming someone right now. The state of Georgia, the University of Georgia, are the most insecure and whiniest fan base I've ever seen win a national title. You can't say anything about Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, South Carolina. You can't say anything about anybody without them being like, where's my hug? This is the most pick-me franchise I've ever seen. It's whiny, it's lame, and honestly, it's cringe. It's almost as cringy as barking at people as a grown adult. And it's like, you just won back-to-back national championships. Can you not be happy in this monster that Kirby Smart has built? He has legitimately built a dynasty that could rival Nick Saban's dynasty. And all you guys have to say is, where's Georgia? Whenever anyone says anything about Bryce Young or Joe Milton or, Jim Harbaugh redefining expectations at Michigan, or is Ryan Day the guy at Ohio State? I mean, damn. Arkansas can't send out a tweet about Sam Pittman without Georgia saying something in the comments.
And the fan base ruins it. They ruins it. And look, Mississippi State also does things at football games that is super annoying. But when I'm at the bar and I hear grown men barking at a TV screen because they have Georgia jerseys on, it's repulsive. And it makes me want them not to win. It makes me really, really not like them. It's got to stop. It's gross.
Georgia would be a feel-good story. You win your first title in 40 years, you go back-to-back, walk on QB, et cetera, would be a really nice feel-good story. if their fans weren't so fucking miserable to be around.
I love the story. I just cannot stand the way their fans act.
And while I'm on my soapbox, Stetson Bennett should not have been a Heisman finalist. And anyone who thinks he should have is wrong, number one. Number two, an idiot. And number three, probably a bad person.
The Heisman as a whole was a joke this year.
The Heisman as a joke has been the Heisman as a whole has been a joke since 1997.
I think some people deserved it, but that's for another podcast.
No, the Heisman lost all legitimacy whenever they gave it to Charles Woodson over Peyton Manning. The biggest blunder of any award in the history of awards. Even word, I'm not going to say that on air. Okay. I'll tell you off pod. I'm not going to say it on air. And, Tennessee and Georgia are not rivals. They play in the same division. We play in the same conference. Tennessee's rivals are Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Vanderbilt.
Dude, Georgia Tennessee and Georgia are rivals. Come on.
I know you wouldn't understand because Memphis has no legitimate rivals. Georgia and Tennessee are not rivals. We are not historical rivals. We're just not.
So you're telling me that Tennessee, and I know this because of all the Tennessee fans I know, you don't circle that game. Did you circle that game before y'all played them this year?
Of course you did. After we beat Alabama and we were both undefeated, of course I did.
You guys circle that game every year. I remember when you guys had...
Because I circle every year are Florida and Alabama. Those are your benchmarks. You would like to beat Georgia because they're really good right now. And, obviously you're going to compare yourself to the best team in the league. But if Georgia was bad, we're not talking about them. We're not thinking about them. They are basically Mississippi State.
Rocket scientist quarterback. What was his name? I can't remember.
Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs. When y'all had Josh Dobbs and y'all beat Georgia at Tennessee, my brother was there.
The only thing notable about that, and not that one, that game was a good game, but that's like, beating ranked South Carolina. Woo, you beat a ranked team, whatever. The next year,
it was a huge game for y'all.
The next year when he threw that Hail Mary, that's the game that gets talked about a lot. The only notable thing about that game was Tennessee started 5-0, beat Florida and Georgia, was in the driver's seat to go to Atlanta.
That was such a big game for y'all. I've known Tennessee fans for my entire life.
I don't talk about that home game. I talk about the away game where he threw the Hail Mary. The home game, that's nice that year. That's not something that really sticks with me, though.
All the Tennessee fans I know have a real vendetta against Georgia. And as I've grown up,
it's not because we're rivals. It's because their fans are obnoxious. There's a difference.
Okay, I maybe so, but
Memphis
it sure does seem like a rivalry.
Memphis is not our rival. I still would want to beat them if we played.
Yeah, but it's so much different. It's so much different.
It's not, and it's only in football. These other rivalries expand in other sports. Georgia basketball, irrelevant. Who cares? I think I watched the game this year. I think we beat them by 40, but I watch every Tennessee game. It's not like I'm like, oh, we got to fucking beat these guys like I do with Florida or Vanderbilt or Alabama, which we beat Alabama as well. They were number one in the country. We have a real knack for beating Alabama when they're number one in the country.
So now rivalries have to be multi-sport. It can't just be one.
I think it helps to be multi-sport.
But it can just be one, right?
I guess it can be, but again, we're not rivals with Georgia. Our rival slots are filled.
You know better than I do, but I throughout my entire life, it seems
I don't
like
think Georgia would consider us rivals. Their rivals are Florida, Auburn, Georgia Tech. And there's this kind of forced one with South Carolina. I don't know if they really consider that anymore. I don't consider that one anymore. Moving on. Top 5 most whiny and insecure fan bases in the country. We're not going to alternate. We're just going to give them. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Georgia, obviously. Ohio State. You want to talk about a pick-me school, man? Ohio State, has a real – they cannot get over that Jalen Hyatt won the Biletnikoff. They just think that the SEC is bad and they would run it. Ohio State, they play one real game a year. I'm not counting Penn State. They play one real game a year, and that determines their season. Every other game is Northwestern or Rutgers, but they want to talk about how many points they score, how many yards they put up. Guys, you're playing a high school team. If you came to the SEC, you're an 8-4 squad. Ryan Day sucks. Next, Arkansas. The former whiniest and most insecure fan base in the country before Georgia did whatever they did, but at least Arkansas hasn't won anything. Arkansas baseball acts like they have the greatest dynasty to ever step foot on planet Earth, but they have not won a single World Series title. They only have 4 SEC titles, including this year. They like to make fun of Tennessee for saying that they're a one-coach program. Arkansas had no program before DVH. They still barely have one right now. Basketball won a title once 30 years ago before any of us were born. Football won a title once 80 years ago before any of us were born. Perhaps the most, basically Missouri with worse academics. Extremely whiny on the Bird app. Number 4, Oklahoma. And not so much with me directly, but they have gotten real whiny about Tebow. And if you don't know who Tebow is, it is that bitch out west, Lincoln Riley. They've gotten real whiny about some of that stuff. The weird thing they have with Texas coming to the SEC, not being able to get over the hump in the playoff. Oklahoma falls squarely into that mix, particularly if you're on the Bird app like I am. And the whiniest state in the union. I said the state of Georgia earlier, but the whiniest state in the union. This is really a 5A and a 5B. The state of South Carolina. There is so much wine that Jesus would be ashamed between Clemson and South Carolina.
So, all right, should I start with 5 or 1?
Doesn't matter. I started with 1 and went down.
I'm going to start with 1. And this might have been your 1, Ohio State.
That was my 2. Georgia was my 1. Ohio State was my 2.
Constant. And you probably get a better sense of all this because you're way more on the Bird app than I am. At the same time,
follow me at dcroc53.
The fact that it bleeds over and I read it makes me know that it is so whiny. So we're going to start with Ohio State. Our next one is going to be Clemson. I don't know if it's Dabo Swinney or if it's just everyone else involved. Tragedy. They just complain. They complain about the transfer portal. They complain about this school's recruiting.
The worst part about Clemson is South Carolina and vice versa. The message boards I've read between those two, and all like Shane Beamer and Dabo Swinney are 2 sides of the same coin. Big fucking dorks. And it's like those 2 fan bases are so obnoxious. Like you put them together, and that's why they had to go together on my list. But 100% Clemson, yeah.
3rd, Kentucky. They complain about everything. Their good years, they still complain. Kentucky drives me insane. And who's our friend? Matt Jones.
Matt Jones,
just
say he's our friend.
His job is to, for lack of a better word, bitch on the radio and on the Bird app all day, every day. It drives me insane. 4th, another one that you mentioned, Arkansas. Always complain about everything, always act like they're going to be really good when last year they got beat by Kansas, who historically has been horrible in a bowl game. Just complain. And my number 1 final, and it's just recently become like this, Alabama.
Okay.
They complain about everything. They don't just complain about everything. They complain about everything and then people's reaction to that everything.
Do you remember when Nick Saban went on a media tour trying to beg people to put him in the playoff? I was going to say, man, Alabama for years, they were above whining because they didn't have to. They have become some whiny bitches the last year and a half, 2 years. And I guarantee it, man, after October, Nick Saban's going to be looking with a close loss or a almost loss to someone, and he's going to have a loss to someone else, and he's still going to have like Texas A&M, who I think is going to do surprisingly well this year and who has been playing him well the last 4 years. LSU, who just beat him last year, still going to have them on the schedule. Still going to have Hugh Freeze at the end of the year with Auburn. And they're going to be looking up and being like, man, it might be time to start thinking about something other than Saban because something's not clicking here. Tommy Rees doesn't look good. Kevin Steele, obviously not the answer. There's going to be a wake-up moment where they're going to try to oust the builder of the greatest dynasty that's ever happened.
I think Saban leaves before then. I really do. I think if Saban has a bad year this year, I think he's out.
I
I
think if
think
he wins a
he's like
national
done.
title, he retires. I think if he doesn't win a national title, he gets fired. Maybe not this year.
Really?
Maybe not this year. But like I think those are his options. Win a national title and retire or get fired. I don't think there's anything else. Unless he has
Honorable
like a heart
mention.
attack.
Honorable mention on this, Michigan.
You
Those
see, I don't have an issue. I know one Michigan fan that's absurd. Every other Michigan fan I know, pretty cool, pretty rational.
they all I know three, and when I saw this text today, I immediately thought of them. They just complain. It's this person's fault. Oh, this quarterback screwed us over. Oh, I mean, the lack of personal accountability, especially because a lot of people could have made an argument that their coach, what's his name? Oh my God, I'm drawing
Jim
a blank.
Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh, a lot of people made an argument that he should have been out years ago. Now, luckily they didn't get rid of him because they had one of their best years last year. But it
Last
took
2
him a
years.
long time to beat Ohio State. So they just complain about very high level football, basketball, and everything all the time. So I feel like they're a very strong honorable mention.
I don't hate the honorable mention. I feel like
If you had one to give, what would it be?
I might be Tennessee. Of all Twitter, something else.
It's an interesting space.
Like
sure.
we've whined about everything from put the VOLS letters back on Neyland. As soon as they go up, we go 11-2, beat Alabama, Orange Bowl champions. We whine about SEC officiating after every game. We whine about Greg Sankey, who has rigged the league in favor of Alabama. We whine.
It's nice to be a part of a fan base who just takes everything on the chest. If it comes to us, we just take it. We take it and we build from it. Go Tigers. Memphis Tigers.
You guys have a fan base? You could have fooled me. I haven't seen the Liberty Bowl filled in 5 years.
Oh, Davis, you're killing me.
So that's all the topics I have this week. You have any burning top fives, questions? We're good on time.
Yeah, I think we are good on time. By the way, the message you sent me about taxes is so true. It's so true. Like, you would be shocked to see how much I've been in Chicago since August. And if you saw my pay stub and saw how much money I've paid in taxes since I've been here, it would make you sick. I know, because it makes me sick.
Are you talking about the most affordable cities in the United States?
Memphis is definitely one of them.
I saw this Instagram reel and it spit out Memphis as the number one. And it was like, if you made $100,000 a year, this would be your take home after taxes and I think median price of housing or apartment rent or something. It said Memphis was number one. I personally don't believe that.
If I lived in Memphis with the salary that
what is the cutoff for a city? Because I feel like Knoxville would be up there too. Because I know, like, it's just thinking taxes and housing, but there's other things.
I think population plays a role in that. Like, I don't think you can make an argument for like Montgomery, Alabama being one of the most affordable cities, because
food and alcohol is much cheaper in Knoxville than it is in Memphis. It's also much more mediocre though.
It's much cheaper in Memphis than it is here. Like, you can get a $3 beer, $4 beer in Memphis pretty easily. Since I've lived here, I have not paid less than $9 for a beer. And that's a fact. You can't get a burger for less than $15. I mean, an average dinner is a $20 entree. And that's just not how it is where I'm from.
Knoxville, it's 10.
Well, there you go. It's not as good, but
I think college areas tend to have cheaper stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, like, some of the food is pretty damn good. Gus's Good Times Deli. No free ads, but if you're ever in Knoxville, check them out.
Well, unless you go to Northwestern, which is in Chicago. So, I mean, that's
not a real college.
Maybe not.
Northwestern did not win a single game on American soil last year, but they are the college football champions of Ireland. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please give us a rating of 5 stars. Follow us on YouTube at Bad Take Blake, where you can see all of our videos. We will have some YouTube exclusives at some point, including more captain's logs on the way. Please comment, like, subscribe, ring the bell to get all of our notifications there. Follow us on Twitter at Bad Take Blake _. As Drew mentioned, I myself am active on Twitter at DCroc53.
I'm not as active, but I'm getting there at Drew Dowdy123. It's a work in progress. I stayed away from the Twitter app for a long time, but now that I've started this, I got to get more involved. Also, Davis, we'll talk about this after. Big plans for football.
Big plans.
Big plans.
If you are a crazy fan and you want to come on this show, we are working on putting together a series, a lineup for multiple episodes where we interview you and get your most delusional take. Our first episode in this series is going to feature 3 friends of the pod, one who's already been on the show. We are bringing back Goat Kiffin to get his most delusional Ole Miss football takes. We are bringing on someone I'm very excited to bring on, because I am just going to rip him a new asshole, is B-Diz. He will be our crazy Alabama fan, and he is crazy. He's a lunatic. I'm looking forward to having him on. And then we will have a crazy Arkansas fan as well. Sam will come on, and we will get his... I just kind of feel bad for Sam because, like I said, Arkansas stinks.
I even have, and we'll talk about this after, I got an LSU fan in the works. And by the way, this LSU fan knows more about LSU football and sports, especially women's basketball, than most of the longtime LSU fans that I know. He's very, very versed in everything LSU. It's gonna be fun having him on.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Particularly if you're a Big 12 ACC or Pac-12 fan, we would love to talk to you if you're passionate about sports, particularly college football, because this will be college football-centered delusions. And anyways, that's our show.
Thanks, guys.